My name is Lance. I am 68 years old. For 45 years, the heartbeat of my life has been the steady rhythm of the Pacific against the cliffs below this cedar-shingled house in Carmel. My wife Helen and I built this place with our own hands, a testament to a love that weathered every storm. Now, sitting at our old oak kitchen table, watching the morning fog cling to her rose bushes, I am waiting for the final storm. My son Travis and his wife Margot are on their way. They think they are coming to secure their future. They do not know I have already quietly secured my own. The scent of wood smoke and salt air feels like a farewell. Before we walk into this final chapter together, I wonder where you are listening from. Is your view a city skyline or quiet fields? Let me know in the comments. And if you have ever felt the ground shifting under your feet from someone you trusted, take a second to hit that like button and subscribe. What happens next in this quiet kitchen might change how you see your own family. This house was never just a structure. It was the physical manifestation of a promise. I was a young history teacher with sawdust in my veins. Helen, a librarian with a spirit as wild as the California coast. We bought this steep, overgrown lot for a song our friends calling us foolish. Evenings and weekends for 2 years, we cleared poison oak, poured concrete raised beams. I can still feel the blister on my palm from driving the last nail into our bedroom window frame, Helen handing me a cold beer, her face smudged with dirt and glowing with triumph. We planted the first rosebush, a Mr. Lincoln, to mark our first anniversary under this roof. Every scar on these floorboards tells a story. The deep gouge from when Travis at 5 tried to help me move the piano, the faint water stain by the fireplace from a Christmas Eve when the snowstorm was so wild we brought the tree in soaking wet. Helen's absence these past 5 years is a quiet presence, a note held in the air. I hear it in the specific way the back gate latches a sound she could never quite fix. I see it in the patch of sunlight that moves across the living room rug at 3:15, her favorite time for tea. This house held me together after she was gone. It was my archive, my sanctuary, the keeper of our ghosts. Travis was the soul of this place once, a freckled boy with scraped knees who built elaborate forts in the Monterey pines out back, who would fall asleep in my lap by the fire after a day at the beach. The shift was gradual, almost imperceptible. Law school in the East sanded down his California ease, replaced it with a polished urgency. Then came Margot. She was introduced to us at a stiff dinner in the city, a woman whose handshake was a negotiation, and whose eyes assessed the value of everything in the room, including us. Their wedding was a lavish, cold affair at a hotel. Helen held my arm tight all night, whispering, "He seems like a stranger in our son's skin." After she passed, their visits felt less like homecomings and more like audits. They would walk through rooms not with nostalgia, but with a calculating gaze. The conversation always pivoted to assets, to liability, to prudent planning. Last fall, Travis mentioned offhandedly that a client of his had made a killing selling a teardown in Pebble Beach. Margot had smiled a thin, tight line. "This area is so hot right now. It is almost irresponsible not to monetize a legacy asset like this, Lance." I had brushed it off as the language of their world, a clumsy attempt to connect. I wanted desperately to believe the boy was still in there, worried about his old dad rattling around in a big house. The call that ended that illusion came yesterday afternoon. His voice was stripped of all warmth, the flat, efficient tone I imagined he used in depositions. "Dad, we need to talk." Tomorrow, 10 a.m., it is about your living situation. It has become a concern. My heart hammered against my ribs. After I hung up, the silence in the house was deafening. I called Eleanor Helen's oldest friend, a woman who has no patience for pretense. She listened, and then she swore long and colorfully. "Lance, you sweet, trusting fool," she finally said. "I heard Margot at the club last week. She was talking to that odious estate planning attorney, Gerald Frost. They were discussing petitioning for temporary conservatorship based on observed cognitive decline. They are not coming to talk. They are coming to declare war. And they think you are an unarmed country. You need a fortress by morning." The coffee I brewed the next morning tasted like ash. At 10 on the dot, the black luxury sedan crunched on the gravel drive. They emerged a united front in cashmere and crisp wool. Travis carried a sense of grim duty. Margot carried her leather-bound tablet, a modern shield. We settled in the living room, the same room where we had opened Christmas presents and celebrated birthdays. Now it felt like a courtroom. They began with what I now know lawyers call establishing the record. Margot led with saccharine concern. "Lance, we are so glad to see you looking well. We have been talking and we are just so worried. We hear from the neighbors you have been forgetful, leaving doors unlocked, missing appointments." Travis nodded along, adding, "Yeah, Dad. And that incident with the car last month. You got confused at that intersection." My hands tightened on my knees. The car incident was Travis borrowing my sedan and scraping the bumper, a fact he had carefully omitted to Margot. The missed appointment was a dentist cancellation I had made myself. They were building a case, brick by lying brick. The pretense fell away when Travis leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Here is the thing, Dad. This just is not safe anymore. For you. This house, the stairs, the isolation. We have done the research. The Seacliff Manor is perfect. Full-time staff, meal plans, social activities. You will love it. It is time." Before the nausea could fully rise, Margot smoothly opened her tablet. From a legal and fiduciary perspective, a move like this necessitates some paperwork to ensure a seamless transition of responsibilities. She turned the screen toward me. I saw bold, intimidating headers. "Petition for appointment of temporary conservator, durable power of attorney for asset management." It was a coup presented in 12-point font. "You want me to sign over control of my life?" My voice sounded thin, far away. "For your protection," Margot said, her smile not reaching her cold eyes. "If we cannot reach a voluntary agreement, the court may need to intervene for your own safety. That process can be public, draining. We want to spare you that." The threat, now explicit, hung between us like a guillotine blade. My own flesh and blood was giving me an ultimatum. "Surrender your freedom or we will have the state take it from you." Travis could not look at me. His gaze was fixed on a spot on the rug, the same spot where he used to play with toy trucks. "Tomorrow," he said, his voice hollow. "To make this easier on you, we will start moving a few things in. We will stay here, help you pack, get you settled. It is for the best. Tomorrow." The word was a death sentence. I felt a terrifying emptiness, a void where my love for my son used to reside. In its place, a cold, clear spark ignited. I met his averted eyes and said the only thing I could. "All right. Tomorrow." The sound of their car engine fading was the loneliest sound I had ever heard. The house my companion for decades now felt like a crime scene. I walked a ghost in my own home, trailing my fingers over the bookshelves Helen had sanded the windowsill where Travis had carved his initials. The betrayal was not an abstract concept. It was a physical pain, a vice around my chest. They had not just wanted my house. They had sought to invalidate my entire life, to recast me as a doddering fool in the narrative they were writing for themselves. My hands were shaking so badly, I misdialed twice. Finally, I heard the calm, patrician voice of Alistair Finch. "Lance, to what do I owe the pleasure?" I could not form polite words. "They are trying to take it, Alistair. Travis and Margot. They threatened conservatorship. They are moving in tomorrow." There was a long, static silence on the line. When he spoke again, his voice was low and razor-sharp. "I see. The Frost strategy, nasty business." He cleared his throat. "Lance, I need you to listen very carefully. This is not a family discussion. This is a predatory financial maneuver. I have heard through the grapevine that Travis is leveraged to his eyeballs on that failed seaside development. Margot's bid for named partner is contingent on demonstrating personal stability and significant assets. Your home is not a home to them. It is a life raft and a trophy. They are not trying to care for you. They are trying to cannibalize you." The clinical truth of his words was more devastating than any emotional outburst. It was a balance sheet, and I was a liability to be managed, an asset to be liquidated. "What is left for me?" I whispered, the weight of it pressing me down into Helen's favorite armchair. "A preemptive strike," Alistair said without hesitation. "You sell. You sell now today for an obscene amount of money to a buyer who can close with blinding speed. You remove the asset they are hunting. Without it, their entire legal pretext collapse, a conservatorship for a man who just lucidly negotiated a multi-million-dollar sale. No judge would touch it. Sell." The word was a sob trapped in my throat. Sell the view. Helen woke up to, for 40 years. Sell the porch where I held my infant son for the first time, showing him the ocean. It felt like a second, deeper death. "You would be saving it," Lance Alistair said softly, as if reading my mind. "From them." Would Helen want them in her kitchen, ripping out her roses to put in a water feature? Would she want them selling her books to a stranger? He was right. Her memory in this place was a gentle, loving thing. What they would do to it would be a violation. The spark inside me, the one ignited by their ultimatum, flared into a steady flame. My grief would not be my weakness. It would be my fuel. "Do it," I said, my voice finding a strength I did not recognize. "Find me a buyer. Make it fast. And Alistair, keep it quiet." Dawn broke on the day of the invasion with a pale, washed-out light. I dressed slowly, deliberately, in the clothes I always wore, worn chinos, a soft flannel shirt. I made 1 pot of coffee for myself. At 9 o'clock, the rental truck pulled up a monstrous yellow thing that blocked the driveway. They arrived not as family, but as a relocation team. Travis carried a box labeled study. Margot had a wheeled suitcase, the kind for extended stays. No greetings were exchanged. They moved past me as if I were part of the furniture. Margot began a slow circuit of the living room, speaking into a voice memo on her phone. "Primary suite will need a full remodel. This shiplap is so dated. The fireplace surround could be Carrara marble." Travis set his box down heavily in the middle of the room. "Look, Dad, let us get this paperwork out of the way so we can focus on the move." He nodded to Margot, who produced a sleek leather folder. She laid out documents on the coffee table with the solemnity of a notary. The temporary conservatorship petition was on top lines awaiting my signature and a notary stamp. "This is just a formality," she explained in that chillingly pleasant tone. "It gives us the legal authority to manage the sale of the house and your transition to Seacliff. It is for everyone's protection. And if I refuse," I asked, already knowing the answer. Her smile was thin and cold. "Then we will have to file with the court. The evidence of your decline is unfortunately quite compelling. The neighbors' statements, the medical alerts we have documented. It will be a lengthy, costly process, and you will lose in the end. This is the easier path." It was the final naked threat. They had manufactured evidence. They had turned my quiet life into a dossier of incompetence. The betrayal was so complete, so vicious, it left me calm. I had reached the bottom and found solid rock. My phone, sitting on the side table, rang. The tone was shrill in the tense silence. I picked it up, saw Alistair's name, and with deliberate slowness pressed the button to put the call on speakerphone, setting the phone down between their documents and me. Lance Alistair's voice boomed crisp and clear. "Excellent news. The Rodriguez family does not want to wait. They are accepting the full ask, $5,800,000. Cash offer, 30-day close. They are so eager they want to sign the purchase agreement today. Are you available at 2? I watched their faces. Travis's jaw went slack. All color drained from Margot's cheeks, leaving 2 bright spots of rouge like clown makeup. The confident predatory glint in her eyes shattered into pure, uncomprehending shock. The calculator in her brain was throwing error messages. I kept my eyes locked on them as I replied. "I am available, Alistair. I am at the house right now. And you will never guess who is here with me, very interested in the details of the transaction." For a long moment, the only sound was the distant cry of a gull. Travis was the first to break. His voice was a strangled squawk. Who is that? What are you talking about?" "Sell." "You cannot sell." Margot's professional composure crumbled into furious disbelief. "This is a ludicrous stunt. You have no authority. There are pending familial claims. This property is part of a holistic estate plan." I did not rush. I let their panic fill the space. Then I walked to the antique writing desk in the corner, Helen's desk. From the small locked drawer where she kept our marriage certificate, I took out a single sheet of paper. I carried it back and placed it gently on top of the conservatorship petition. It was the fully executed listing agreement with Alistair's firm, signed by me 3 days prior, granting him the exclusive right to sell the property. This I said, my voice quiet, but filling the room is my authority. The Rodriguez family. He is a professor at the Naval Postgraduate School. She is a botanist. They have twin girls who already picked out which roses will be theirs. The price is $5.8 million. The trust documents are already drafted. The money will fund my life on my terms in a cottage I have already rented in Pacific Grove. It has a view of the sea. "You senile old man," Travis exploded, finally shedding his lawyerly veneer for raw, sputtering rage. "This is my inheritance. You are throwing away my future. This house is mine." It was the truth he had never dared speak aloud. I felt a profound, almost merciful clarity. "No, Travis." I said each word a stone. "This was never yours. It was mine and Helen's. You made it a battlefield. So I have surrendered the land and taken the treasure. Alistair has seen to every detail. My physician has written a robust assessment of my mental capacity. My financial advisor has attested to my sound judgment. Any petition you file will be laughed out of court. You will only succeed in proving your own venality to the world." Margot was scrambling a litigator who had lost control of the narrative. "This sale can be contested." Undue influence. We will tie it up in litigation for years. You are welcome to try, I said finally, allowing a small, weary smile to touch my lips. But you will be suing a perfectly competent man who sold his own home for market value. I doubt your firm's partners would enjoy the publicity. Now I pointed to the door. Our conversation is concluded. You will remove your belongings from my property. You have until noon. Tomorrow, the only people moving in here will be the Rodriguez family. And they, I am certain, will love it, as it was meant to be loved. The defeat that washed over them was total. It was more than the loss of money. It was the humiliation of a perfectly engineered takeover, dismantled by the supposed Mark. It was the shock of realizing the quiet old man they had written off was not a character in their story, but the author of his own. They packed their single box and suitcase in a brittle, furious silence, their grand invasion over before it began. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of bittersweet purpose. The meeting with the Rodriguez family was not a closing, it was a passing of the torch. Carlos Rodriguez shook my hand with a firm, respectful grip. His wife Isabella had tears in her eyes when she told me she had grown up visiting her grandmother in a house with a similar garden, and she promised to cherish Helen's roses. Signing the final papers felt like releasing a breath I had been holding for 5 years. Then alone I began the sacred, heartbreaking work of distillation. I was not packing a life. I was curating a museum of a beautiful marriage and a good, simple existence. I filled a single wooden crate, the one I had built as a young man, our wedding album, Helen's collection of Robert Frost poems, the smooth stone from Big Sur, where I proposed the tiny clay handprint Travis made in kindergarten. Everything else, the furniture we saved for the dishes from our registry, the 1,000 mundane artifacts of a shared life, I donated to a charity that helped families fleeing hardship. I wanted no ghosts, no anchors. I wanted the objects to have a new story, just as I would. With Eleanor riding shotgun, her commentary a steady stream of affectionate profanity. I found a small, sun-drenched cottage in a friendly community. It was not a waiting room for death, as Seacliff would have been. It was a potting shed for a new, quieter life. I had a porch for morning coffee, a workshop nook for whittling, and a short walk to a library. Alistair established the irrevocable trust, and because Helen would have insisted we used a sliver of the money to create an endowment at the local high school, funding an annual prize for the student who wrote the best essay on an unsung figure from history. It felt like planting a seed. The morning I left the Carmel house for the last time, I did not do a final walkthrough. I stood on the front path, the air crisp with impending autumn. The Mr. Lincoln rose was in a late, defiant bloom. I felt a deep, resonant peace. I had not run away. I had executed a strategic retreat, saving what was precious from an advancing army of greed. I locked the blue front door, slid the key into an envelope for Carlos, got into my old reliable station wagon, and drove toward the new sun without a single glance in the rearview mirror. A year has settled into the bones of my cottage. The light is different here, but the sound of the ocean is the same constant companion. I volunteer at the Maritime Museum, telling stories of shipwrecks and explorers to wide-eyed school children. I have a weekly chess game with a retired fisherman named Walt. My life is small, contained, and entirely my own. Last month, a letter arrived on expensive heavy stock, Travis's return address. My hands were steady as I opened it. It was not a long letter. It was an admission couched in the language of corporate restructuring, but an admission nonetheless. The fallout from their failed coup had been severe. Margot had not made partner. The whispers about her tactics had seen to that. Their marriage, a partnership built on shared ambition, had dissolved under the weight of mutual blame and financial strain. He wrote, "I am beginning to understand the magnitude of what we tried to do. I am sorry for the pain we caused. I am in counseling." I read it once, then folded it neatly and placed it in the drawer of Helen's old desk, which now sits in my cottage. I felt a hollow ache, not for the man he became, but for the ghost of the boy he was forever lost in the pines behind a house that is no longer ours. The wound is no longer raw. It is a fossil, a permanent record of a cataclysm. I have not written back. I may one day, when the memory of the conservatorship papers on my coffee table has faded a little more. The power to choose if and when that happens is a quiet joy. The bridge is burned, but from my side of the chasm, I have a perfect view of the sea. Here is the truth. The salt air has finally scoured clean for me. The deepest fractures are not made by strangers, but by those who know exactly where the foundation is weak. They use the blueprint of your love as a plan for demolition. But you are not the building. You are the ground. And even scorched earth in time can grow something new. Saying no to those who would claim a piece of your soul is not an act of anger. It is an act of profound self-preservation. Your peace is not an heirloom to be passed down. It is a sovereign nation, and you are its sole defender. The ultimate wealth was never in the deed to the land, but in the unshakable deed to yourself. I watch the evening fog roll in over the water, now a grey blanket softening the world. The scent is the same kelp salt distant wood smoke, but everything within me is different. I surrendered a kingdom of memory. In its place I won a small, sturdy country of one, and I will govern it with kindness and fierce protection for all the days I have left. If you have ever stood at a similar threshold where family felt like a foreign country, and your own heart was the only map you could trust, I would be honored to hear your story. How did you find the courage to draw that line in the sand? Share it with me in the comments below. If this story of quiet defiance resonated with you, please give this video a like. It lets me know these truths are worth sharing. Subscribe to this channel for more journeys from the other side of 50, where the stories are not about endings, but about brave new beginnings. And if you know someone who needs a reminder that it is never too late to reclaim your narrative, please share this with them. Thank you for your time, for listening to the story of an old teacher and his house by the sea. Wherever you are, I wish you peace and the unshakable strength to protect it.